Hello everyone, and welcome back. Today is February 5th, 2020, and as always, we have quite a lot to cover. First of all, the theme continues, and I think for the first couple weeks of this legislative session, it's going to remain kind of consistent, which is appropriations, and more. So, give me your money is kind of the name of the game right now. Today, we had another huge amount of appropriation bills come through. We're now up to $19 billion of the budget has been funded. And to quote the Speaker of the House, Brad Wilson, he did say, well, 19 billion down and one to go. One meaning that the governor did want a $20 billion budget, and we aim to please the governor. So here we go. We're shooting for that. So today we had 5 fiscal notes that were passed, all of them coming through on the Senate side of things. First was HB1. This bill was another $2.1 billion, and this was for higher education. We then had HB4, and HB4's fiscal note was for $358 million, and that was for business, economic development, labor base. We then had HB5, which was $78 million for retirement and individual entities. We then had HB6, which was infrastructure and general government. $2.6 billion, ladies and gentlemen. And then to round it out, we had HB7, the National Guard and Veteran Affairs, for $200 million, half of that coming from the federal government. Again, in the show notes below, you can go ahead and click on the fiscal note for each one of those. You can also review the bills to understand just exactly, again, this whole debate, where is the money going? My number one concern with all of this is, again, the discussion that I think we should be having. And that discussion is, what is the proper role of government? Of course, none of us want to say that we live in a socialist community. However, most of the programs that our government offers are very socialist as they approach the necessity of saying there's a need, so the government will meet that need, and will do so through taxation of the citizens. So what that really refers to is, instead of people being able to voluntarily assist veterans or assist the disabled or assist individuals with special needs, I mean, the list just never stops. Now it's government's role to force us take that money and then do with it as they want. The other interesting thing through all of these committee hearings is the number one concern, which is we just can't match what private industry does. Everybody's leaving government to go to private industry because private industry can pay more, do more. Newsflash, shouldn't we be taking the hint that private industry is going to be able to better meet the needs long term? And again, I'm not a person who's going to sit here and claim we should just jerk the rug out from under all of these programs. That would not be sound. It would not be advisable. But we should have a plan, a 5-year, a 10-year plan, wherein we can enact meaningful changes and roll back some of these huge expenditures. We also had a very urgent bill, and this actually came up a couple days ago. I've been looking deep into it. Here's what we know. HB241. Mark that one down. HB241. This is one that we definitely want to oppose. And this bill would compel them as young as 5 years old to attend kindergarten. Now, that may not sound like much, but let's look into this for a moment. Currently, it's up to the parents whether or not they choose to send a child off to kindergarten. A lot will do a private program. A lot may do a homeschool program. A lot may do tutoring. A lot may just choose to skip it and go right into first grade. What this bill does is now it constrains, and more so than that, it also would require homeschooling families to receive an excuse from the board to ensure that the student attains correct competencies. Look into the bill, lines 99 through 108, and then also lines 131 through 134. Down below, I've got the bill for you. Some action items. Number 1, make sure you're contacting your legislator. Give them a heads up. This bill is coming. We oppose it. Second of all, this bill is currently in the Rules Committee, which means it has not yet been given the committee where it will be heard for the first time. Again, how does a bill become law? First, it gets numbered, then it goes to Rules Committee, then it moves over into a committee where a vote can take place. If it moves out of that committee favorably, it goes to the House floor. Since the committee gave it a favorable vote, most representatives or senators are going to say, they must have vetted it, they got public input, who am I to oppose it? So the best chance to kill a bill is in committee. This one will most likely be heard by the House Education Committee. And again, I've placed a link below to the members of that committee. Please take action. Send messages, send emails, send your phone calls to the members of this committee that we oppose this type of government overreach into the opportunity for a family, specifically parents, to determine the learning of their young children. Again, we're talking about 5-year-olds, ladies and gentlemen. Beyond that, we had a lot of bills that were being heard up in committee today. Again, as the appropriations are winding down, more and more committees are going to open up to bills flooding through. So we had a lot today. Some of the bills that I wanted to highlight. HJR 6. Now, this was a joint resolution on the benefit of therapy animals. I love animals. I've got 2 dogs, a cat, many birds, rabbits, chickens, couple beehives, like the list goes on and on. So you're talking to a person who loves animals. At the same time, I'm also a person who respects private ownership and private parties. There's an interesting thing out there called the ADA, the American Disability Association. And what this does is it makes it illegal for a private business to ask a person who is bringing in a therapy or a service animal, is this a real therapy animal? Is this a real thing? Or have you just gone over to PetSmart and bought a cute little label and put it on your whatever animal and brought it in? This legislation says how much we love animals. The legislation says how the handlers and the animals themselves are very well trained. How do we know that? We can't. So I see this bill as very dangerous for private industry, private business that may or may not want to open up the floodgate of this type of legislation. The second one, HCR 7. And this is the concurrent resolution encouraging congressional action on Medicare drug prices. Look at that for a moment. Congressional action on Medicare drug prices. So here's again the trouble that we encounter when government gets into business. So we have a government entity, and this entity is saying, we're going to fund Medicare. A huge proponent of Medicare is prescription medication. Believe it or not, those things cost a ton. So as they're trying to lower Medicare costs, they're now approaching private business and determining, in my opinion, winners and losers. Saying, wait a second, you cannot charge that amount of money for that particular bill. This, in my opinion, is not the correct way to legislate. It's not the correct way to go through the process of what is the proper role of government. We also have HB241. This one being offered by Representative Kim Coleman, and it's on raw milk products. Let me ask you a simple question. Do we like these 2 lines? So line 121 and line 122 say the following. The statement, quote, raw milk products, no matter how carefully produced, may be unsafe. Did you hear that? So even though we're trying to say, let's bring raw milk products out, let's make sure that this is something that we can do, this particular bill simply makes government bigger. It takes these small farms that may want to bring their product to market, and it's forcing them to label it that it might be unsafe. Help me understand, what other products are we doing that with? Although we know so many different products are unsafe, but raw milk products are being treated with this interesting, and I consider to be quite weighty and unfair legislation. Another one that came out, SB 77, and this is the electric energy storage tax credit. First of all, who doesn't love a tax credit? We all do. But let's look at it this way. Solar energy. The question is, again, is it the proper role of government to determine winners and losers? We've been told time and time again that solar energy is the best thing for our environment. Solar energy is the way to overcome the use of fossil fuels. Solar energy is the way to be clean, and the list just never ends, it seems. Solar energy is just amazing, but is it? I've placed a link down below that I'd love all of you to look into, and it's from the Institute for Energy Research. And it goes through and it talks about the cost of producing the panel, the cost of recycling, disposing of the panel. As we all know, most panels have a shelf life somewhere between 15 or 20 years, though a lot of panels may not even make it that long. So are they really a long-term solution, or are these panels somewhat dangerous? Again, I'm not one to say one way or another, but I am here to say that the jury is still out. The jury has not concluded conclusively that solar energy in of itself, with all of the nuances that go into that particular energy, that it is 100% safe. Also, is it the role of government to be incentivizing people to do it? This bill would then make it a limit of $5,000 for a resident that is doing a solar panel install, and would also make it a limit of $50,000 for a commercial industry or commercial business that's doing the install. Again, very strange day up on the Hill, which again, it really forces us to take a step back and evaluate the proper role of government. What are the principles that this nation was founded on? What are the principles of our great Constitution? And is all of this legislation that's being considered consistent with those principles? Great questions to consider. Again, I appreciate everyone tuning in. Busy day up on the Hill. We'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in.